Hi, this is Marcia, and today I'm going to be sharing out some ideas for a social distancing classroom while using the three phases of blended learning model. We're going to start out today by going through and looking at how to lay out your classroom for 2 studios, 3 studios, and then we're going to look at 4 studios. I'm going to use a total of 24 students in my environment, so if you have less or more, you might have to adjust accordingly. Please note that your school district and the CDC is definitely going to give you guidelines on how to set up your classroom, but if you have a liberty of changing your space just a little to make it fit the blended learning model, then this could be something that you could do. All right, let's go ahead and get started. To begin, I laid down a piece of tape in the middle of my classroom. In my classroom, I'm also going to think about setting it up where there is as little personal items as possible, including myself. I'm going to look to see what is it that I really need to have in my classroom and what is it that I could take home and store until I can bring everything back in. First and foremost, take a look at your inventory of your belongings, remove what is not necessary, and you'll be surprised at how much space you might have. So I laid out the piece of tape on the carpet so the kids know where the divider is between the 2 studios. This is a 2-studio rollout. Also, in my 2 studio, I'm going to be using an overhead projector or an interactive panel. That is going to go right here at the front of the board. So the front of the room is going to be looking that way. If your rules are that the students have to all be facing the front of a room, then of course, stay by those guidelines. But if not, maybe you can use some of these ideas that I'm talking about today. So this is going to be the teacher. The teacher is going to be standing kind of close to the interactive board so that she could touch it, showcase, and really project out what she's talking about. I love using a hover camera, and especially if I'm in a small group setting, that way kids can kind of see even if they're spaced 6 feet apart. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my small group. So this is going to be a small group instruction where the students are going to be 6 feet apart, but they're going to be all kind of set up in kind of like a stadium seating idea. But they want us to be able to see the board. So I'm going to really make sure that they're kind of set up, but they're really spaced apart, 6 feet, making sure I follow all guidelines, but I'm going to have half of my class with me. Now, those of you who have attended any of my workshops know that the smaller the groups, the more you can go in and really customize the learning for them. So we really want to start to work on those skills, and also by doing different studios, we're increasing student ownership. In case anything happens where we have to close the school for 2 weeks, we are able to let those kids continue to learn on their own. So my advice is get into the studios as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. So I have 12 of my students in this area, and they're all going to be facing my direction, meaning that I'm going to make sure that no matter what, they're kind of facing where I am looking. That way they can see the board, I can answer questions, and I have good eye contact with those students. So this is 2 studios. The other studio is going to be the same idea where I'm going to have those 12 students separated down below into 6 feet apart. Now this is where I get a little bit different because I want to really increase student ownership in my blended learning environment. So instead of them facing forward towards the board, I'm going to actually either have them facing sideways or towards the back. Now, if you're doing whole group, all you have to do is tell them to turn their chairs around and they can face your direction. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I want them to be able to do the independent work on their own without being bothered by what is happening up here at the front of the room. Now again, this is for the blended learning process. If you're setting up a blended learning classroom, these would be some ideas that I would do. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same number of students, but instead of 2 studios, we're going to do 3 studios. So here is my 3-studio rollout plan. My 3 studios are going to look kind of the same way. I'm going to take my classroom and I'm going to put tape down the middle of the room. Now, again, I really have minimized all the things in my classroom so I have as much space for the students as possible. I will have an overhead projector or my interactive panel up at the front of the room again. So I'm going to make sure I have that, and this is going to be kind of my location. So this becomes my mini lesson. So this is 3 studios and how I break it apart. Well, if we have 24 students, I'm now going to evenly break them up into 3 different studios. So this studio down here is going to be independent practice, and then this one is going to be digital content. So my digital content, my independent, and my mini lesson. So I'm going to divide and put the students in those areas, again, as close to being 6 feet apart as possible. When I'm doing my digital content area, what I really like to do is make sure that I can see their screens. So I'm going to make sure that the students, our backs are facing me so I can see their screens. In the case that they're getting stuck or they need help, I can use my light speed pods to help the students. Be like, hey, I can see that you're struggling getting into Schoology. Here's what you can do. So if you don't know about light speed pods, you might want to take a look at that as well. Those are really good, especially in a social distancing classroom. So again, I'm going to set up my room with the number of students that I have, but this time, since I have 3 studios, my mini lesson is going to get smaller. So with my 3 studios, I have 8 students in each one of the studios. Again, this is my mini lesson. So I have 8 students with me up here in this mini lesson. Independent practice, 6 feet apart, 8 students down here, and then digital content. Now remember what I just said, I want to make sure that my digital content is so that they can see their screens. So they're going to be kind of facing in this kind of a format where they're facing this way. And my independent practice, I would have facing towards the wall or towards the back wall. Again, I'm trying to build up that student ownership. So I really need them to understand that when I'm in a small group instruction, that they need to be working on their own. Now my group is all going to be facing towards me. We're going to make sure that they are seeing what I'm projecting, showing them examples of how to do the key concepts and mastering those standards. Now the trick is, since we're doing 3 studios, we have to think about how are these students going to rotate in a safe environment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have my small group is going to rotate to independent practice. Independent practice is going to rotate to digital content. And then, of course, digital content is going to rotate up to my mini lesson. So they're going to follow this pattern. So when the timer goes off, they're going to get up and they're going to rotate from one studio to the next. Again, if you're not for sure what I'm talking about with studios, make sure you go and watch our YouTube channel or get our Blended Learning app, or you can also just go to our website, blendedlearningpd.com. Okay, let's continue. What we're going to do now is we're going to do the exact same thing, but now we're going to do it with 4 studios. Now with 4 studios, what I have done is I've set it up where my projector, my interactive panel, is still in the middle of the room, but I've actually offsetted my lines on the floor. I'm now divided into 4 equal parts. Well, kind of equal. This side is a little bit smaller than this side. Now we have 24 students, so we want to make sure that we can keep all those 24 students safely distanced apart. Now my projector did not move. I just moved my line over, just so I can have those students over here using that. So this is for 4 studios. And what I'm going to do is my small group is going to be set up in an area where the students are going to be kind of, hopefully, if it's allowed, working at a small table with me, safely distanced apart. So if we have 24 students and 4 groups, now I'm going to have 6 kids in my small group instruction. This is really going to allow me to help customize, personalize their learning environment. So I want to make sure that I'm there in that small group and they're safely distanced, but at the same time, I'm able to help them. Ideally, wouldn't it be great if we can use those little cool tables again? So maybe keep our fingers crossed, I can stay safely, put lines on the table so the kids know exactly where to stay. So this is my mini lesson. So this is my small group instruction, what we call a mini lesson. This over here is independent practice. And in my independent practice, again, I'm going to have 6 students working with me, right? And they're going to be over in the independent area. This time I might have them facing this back corner. So I might even have it set up in like a really fun little shape where those 6 students are kind of safely distanced, but they're facing this back corner. When I was teaching a group of teachers yesterday about implementing these studios, I kind of kept saying the corner, and I'm like, no, we're not putting them in the corner. We're just facing them a different direction so they could keep focused. We don't want them to be disrupted by what else is happening in the classroom. Now this is going to be my digital content. Since I've already set up that digital content in a digital content bar setting, I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to set it up where the students have still at that digital bar, I can see their screens and they're safely distanced apart. All right, so they are going to be facing in different directions, but they're going to be, I can see their screen from where I am standing. So I can see what is happening over here. Now, this is what's really interesting, and this is what most of the teachers are giving me some like, are you sure we can do this? In a blended learning rollout, the 3 phases of blended learning, there are 4 different studios. The reason why there are 4 different studios is because of the fact that we want to be able to showcase their learning through 4 different modalities. We want them to be able to have tactile learning, visual learning, kinesthetic learning, and auditory learning to really enhance those learning standards. So this is what we call the Future Ready Studio. In the Future Ready Studio, we want to try to get them to collaborate as much as possible. That's why I put that interactive panel there. Maybe we will be able to use those interactive panels where students can go up, collaborate, talk, design, create using that panel. Of course, making sure their hands are clean, making sure that the panel is clean, all those things will have to come into play. And your district will give you those guidelines. But in the Future Ready area, this is where the students are going to be building, they're going to be creating. This is where they're going to be doing some like maybe social distancing communication for like book talks. What happens then is when the timer goes off, the students are going to rotate. And I'm going to make sure that they are rotating in a very safe manner. So I'm going to be having them set up where they rotate in this kind of a clockwise fashion, where my mini lesson will go to independent practice will go to digital content will go to Future Ready, and of course the Future Ready will go to my mini lesson. So I want to make sure that they follow these lines, and if needed, I'm going to tape arrows on the floor to show them how they should be traveling so that way everybody stays safe and everybody stays within those guidelines that were provided to us. As we roll through the plan from our 2 studios to our 3 studios, know that this is part of our deployment plan. We just don't jump right into 4 studios at the beginning of the year. If you need to learn more about this deployment plan, we do a workshop that gives you 8 weeks. We'll show you what it will look like in an 8-week deployment plan using blended learning in a virtual, hybrid, or in a social distancing environment. But this is what we work towards. This isn't happening on day 1. This is happening over time. So just know that. Again, my name is Marsha Kish. I'm a blended learning expert. I travel around teaching teachers just like you how to implement blended learning. If you would like to learn more, please contact us. We'd be more than willing to help either you, your school, or your school district. Thanks, guys, and good luck setting up your classrooms.